Is an associate professor in public law, founding dean, Kabarak University School of Law, an advocate at the High Courts of Kenya and Tanzania. He's former director and chief executive officer of Kenya School of Law. He's the founding trustee of the African Institute for Leaders and Leadership, founding chairman of the Association of the Citizens Against Corruption, ACAC. He is also former lecturer at the University of Nairobi, the USIU Africa, United States International University Africa, Vidna University USA, that's Nairobi Summer School. He's also former secretary of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, and former director of Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, KACC, now known as Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. He holds a Bachelor of Laws and Master of Laws degrees from the University of Nairobi, and LLD, that's Doctor of Laws, on the laws of the sea from the University of Ghent in Belgium. Our beautiful Professor Pielo Lumumba is also holder of the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa, from the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, fellow of the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya, FCPS, a member of the Kenya Institute of Management, and a certified mediator. Currently, Professor is, like what Professor said, is involved in his foundation, law firm, and Pan-Africa activities. I needed a whole year for that. So please put your hands together.
Norway now has a sovereign fund of $1 trillion United States dollars. In other words, every Norwegian whose mother and father have not been born, I'm being dramatic here, notionally already have, it is estimated, the equivalent of $199,000. But in many African countries, children who will be born 100 years from today are already indebted. I'm being dramatic about it, but it's in the drama that I'm making my point, that we've got to put our act together. So, in a nutshell, I hold the view that you who are in the diaspora, that all of us, our hands must be on deck, and I believe that Africa is a project that is achievable and is not going to be achieved by us. And I want to conclude with this story, which is from Ghana, because my host is Ghanaian. And because the man whom I'm going to talk about is a great African called James Emmons Kwegyir Aggrey of Africa. The story that I'm telling you has been told times without number. Even I, when I tell it, I think I have a new version every time I tell it. But I never lose the gist of the story. It's the story of a poultry farmer who, as it were, had chicken, and then one day the chicken wandered, and as they came back, there was a chick of an eagle, and then they grew, and one day a naturalist visited the farmer and said, but amongst your chick there is one that looks like an eagle. And he said, no, even if it was an eagle, it has been fed on chicken feed for too long. It is now a chicken, and that once you fed an eagle on chicken feed for too long, it loses its eaglehood and acquires its chickenhood. And the naturalist said, no, once an eagle, always an eagle. And he said, let me try. On the first day he tries, puts the chick on its palm, and it refuses to fly. And the farmer says, in jest, says, I told you, it was once an eagle, it's been fed on chicken feed, it lost its eaglehood, it's now a chicken. The second time he comes very early in the morning, picks the chick, and as the sun is rising, he puts the chick on the palm of his hand and it flies away. And James Emmons Kwejiragri, I'm told, became very dramatic and says, I told you, once an ego, always an ego, no matter how long it is fed on chicken feed. And I'm suggesting to Africa, we have been fed on chicken feed for too long, but we never lost our egohood. Let us now soar and fly. And we must. God bless you.
Chaired so many sessions here. I don't know whether I have ever had someone who has such encyclopedic and comprehensive knowledge of our continent. I mean, this guy is sitting here, no paper, nothing, and he can crunch data and things all around. I mean, he knows all about all countries in Africa. I mean, I'm impressed. So please join me again to give him. On this note, I will open the floor. Please keep your questions short and to the point.
I have one question for you. You mentioned very clearly about economic reorientation and about the political, waking up, within the political spectrum. And what I'm missing here is the human being in terms of our consciousness. How do you see that working together as a glue to these two very key areas that you mentioned?
In accordance to our ethnicities, we said about the Congress many times, what kind of project of society, how to build up such a thing like states. I mean, how can we communicate? I also have been traveling in Africa. We don't communicate. We didn't talk a long time to each other. And it is my problem.
I would love to focus on what can the world learn from Africa. There's obviously so much that we can learn from other nations, and you brought such lovely examples. But I firmly believe, and this I suppose was something I was raised with in the Baha'i writings. The Baha'i writings talk about Africa as the pupil of the eye of humanity, the fount of light, the revealer of the contingent world. It's a special place. And how can we focus more on what we have to contribute to other places, what we can share, and what people can learn from us? And I say us, identifying with Africa.
But let me start with the question of the human element. If you read the paper that I've presented, I've covered all these in detail. But let me tell you, the human being is at the very center of all these. There is the American Declaration of Independence. I love it for one thing, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain and unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think the people who wrote that, it was amazing. It is the human being. All these things that we are doing is for purposes of giving prominence and esteem. And that is why I think self-esteem is at the very heart of it. What do you think about yourself? Who are you? Self-discovery is very important. And I think that in every project that we undertake, we must focus on the human being. In the last 1 year, when I was seeing young people dying in the Mediterranean, there was a very poignant one when they died in their numbers in Lampedusa. A Nigerian was interviewed, and this is what he said in substance, that he'd rather die in the Mediterranean than live at home. I mean, the natural instinct of a human being is self-preservation. If a human being has reached a state where he's saying he'd rather die, something has died in that person. something has died inside of him. And what has died is that the way we have administered ourselves over the years. You graduate, you are an adult, you are in your 30s. Yesterday I met a lady from Zimbabwe who is a doctoral student here. And she said that when she was leaving Zimbabwe, her salary was 25 cents per month. Right now in South Sudan, the nurses are paid $3 a month. $3 a month. You are human beings. Yet, in the same environment, your cabinet ministers and government officials are taking their children to schools in Europe and America. The human being is at the very center of it. And I think that is the one thing that we can learn from the Europeans. Europe, whichever country, and you live here, you know. Even in this Austria, I'm told if somebody is out of school, there is a period during which they receive some little money, so that their dignity is not undermined. And you see that in the United Kingdom. The Chinese can account for their citizens everywhere in the world. If there is a disaster anywhere in the world, a terrorist attack, do you hear any other African country saying our citizens? They don't know. Because African citizens in different parts of the world are undocumented. Most of our African ambassadors are here to trade. They are not interested in you. The only thing they do is to call you for the national days to drink alcohol. Most of them. But you go to America, if you go to Europe, even the ambassadors in our own countries, people were complaining in Nairobi the other day that the Chinese have put up a board. And they were saying, why should they put up a board in Chinese in Kenya? Somebody said, yes, they are speaking to their Chinese nationals in the language that they understand. If you want to do it in Kikuyu or in Luo in Austria, so be it. Or Ga or Ashanti. What I'm saying, therefore, is we must have a system that focuses on the individual well-being. The individual well-being in the totality, in their education, in their health. In other words, a country that takes care of the people from the cradle to the grave. Europe, in the recent past, has succeeded in doing that. Not 100%, but you can see genuine effort at improvement. In many African countries, that does not happen. Look at what happened the other day in the ongoing Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Somebody who had been stabilized is moved to a church to be brave. Now everybody is dying in that church. Of course. Any system, this is real. It's happened the day before yesterday. Moved from a hospital setting in where they were quarantined to go to a church. Somebody says it is a spiritual ailment. The government should be present to deal with these things, so that we have all these things. So I can't agree with you. And if you look at Africa Agenda 2063, the focus is the human being. And we too must move in the direction of focusing on the human being. The second question that you've asked is about Ali Mazrui. I'm very happy that the African Union has now said that Kiswahili will be admitted as an official language, which is a good thing. Kiswahili is a language that I think progressively is acquiring technical language, because that is what you need. It used to be said that many African countries cannot quite thrive in a scientific environment, which I think is untrue. One of the poorest languages in the world is English. In real terms, the English language is very poor. But the English did something that no other language did. The French, in their pride and conceit, said, we must remain with pure French. Therefore, they remain pure and small. But the English, raison d'etat, rapprochement, they picked from everywhere. And today, English is a dominant language because it borrowed from all the other languages. I believe that Kiswahili, there used to be a competition. You remember this argument. Should it be Hausa? There was a time when it was said, Hausa, there are 40 million of them. There was a time when it was said, let's have Oromo, because the Oromia. Also, then there was an argument that we have Yoruba. But I think it is now settled, because in terms of actual speaking, If you look at Kiswahili, the entire East African belt, through to Mozambique, through to Eastern Congo, it's possible to develop that language so that in the next 10 years, it becomes a language that, because there is also...
Nkrumah had an
Yes.
Swahili project.
Yes.
So the idea was to make Swahili the continental language.
Yes.
And then you enrich it with items from different languages of Africa. I
Allow
call
me
it
a critic to
African.
you, please.
Yes.
African.
Allow me a critic.
Yes, please.
You emphasize.
Yes.
I would say democracy might not be our experience in this multi-ethnical context. We need something which you can propose us.
In fact, let me answer him very quickly.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never believed for one moment that democracy as defined by Washington is a one-size-fits-all. I believe that people must determine their own system of governance. Whether they call it democracy or something else, I'm not bothered. The Chinese are very satisfied with their own style, and they think it is democratic, and I have no reason to disagree with them. I have no reason. Even Russia have their own system. I have no reason to disagree. As long as the majority of the people are of the view that that system of governance delivers to them and allows them to participate in a manner that they respect and accept, that is their democracy. You know, the problem that I think we have in many African countries is that things were brought to us one size fits all, and that is why they crumble. Look at, for example, the whole idea of monarchy. One would have thought that monarchy is incompatible with democracy. But you have a monarch in the United Kingdom who is not just about to abdicate, but you also have a very vibrant system of government in which is democratic and participatory. And there is a role for the monarch, and there is a role for this one. In Ghana, they have the traditional rulership, which is compatible with this kind of thing. Uganda. So I think it is once again our duty to determine for us this idea. What I am no longer accepting is we were colonized, therefore we can't do well. Yes, we were colonized. Even the Indians were colonized. Even the Malaysians were colonized. Even the Vietnamese were colonized. Even the Koreans were colonized. That argument is no longer available to us. Will the other civilizations interfere? Yes. Throughout the ages, people will always want to interfere. It is your duty to resist. Which brings me to the question, what can we learn from Africa? I think once again, and many of you are scholars and academics, and some of you are pardoned scholars and academics, and we were talking with Professor Oboku there very early on about the African artifacts which were stolen by European traders and explorers. And they are sitting in museums, in the Louvre, or the British Museum, everywhere in the world. I think the one that they returned, was it the Namibian, the lady that they returned, and the South African. These are heritage, this is African heritage, and the beauty of it is that it demonstrates that Africans were doing things.
Lele is a scholar of Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, yes. There is a book that you must read, is written by an American lady who has changed her name, called Yurugu. I don't know, you can Google the book Yurugu. And my view, therefore, is that look at Africa, and permit me just 1 minute to walk you across Africa. You go to the south and just sojourn amongst the Zulu around that area. You see what can be, look at what was happening in the Monomotapa Empire. Look, go to Angola and to that area of Dahomey. The first organized women's-only army in the world came this idea the Americans are meeting women in the army. They think it's a new thing. There was a whole army of women only in that part of the world. What we need, therefore, is to go back, which is what the Chinese, if you look at the Chinese are amazing. In every university, everywhere in the world now, they are operating something called the Confucius Center. Everywhere. Everywhere. So you can, why are they doing it? Because they know that it is through self-realization and having your culture as the true north that you'll be guided. And I'm suggesting to us, there is a lady who has written a book which some of you may know. She's a philosopher at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, and compares Socrates and a Yoruba sage and philosopher called Runmila. So the book is titled Socrates and Runmila. And she demonstrates that in fact, some of the ideas that Socrates had were Runmila's. And if you doubt it, I want you to also look at, of course there is a little romanticization sometimes in this thing, but if you look at what Runmila was saying about the science and the arts and all these things, and you read Check Ante Diop, yes. We don't read Diop. The philosophy of Diop, which is known in philosophy as Diopism, is being taught, I think, at the University of Dhaka in Senegal. Mm-hmm. So if you look at all these things, there is a sense in which there is a lot to learn from Africa. It pains me to great, when people come to Africa in my country, Kenya, the only thing is safari, the big five. They are coming to look at land. You know, it's an insult to us that there is nothing to learn. I come here, and the first thing that I want to do is to go to a museum. When I go to the United States of America, I want to go to the Science Museum. You want things that are historical and also contemporary in terms of informing you. But Europe and America are spending more money preserving our lions in situ so that they may look at them periodically. Africa has many things to teach, but Africans must also write. I think part of our problem, we are too oral. We must document things. Because if you don't document things, it means that they are distorted generationally. And therefore they become, after a short time, then they become inconsistent. So you who is a student of Ubuntu, you must now begin to encourage some of the things. Look at many African governments, Professor. Many African universities, as I speak to you, the only money that they receive from government is salaries. I mean, those are glorified high schools you have in many African countries. Because there is no money for research. Those of you who are here, I mean, this is an Institute of African Studies in Austria. You go to other African universities, there is not an Institute of African Studies in African countries. Why are the Europeans, why do they want to know about Africa? Because they are going to deal with us. They are going to deal with us in terms of trade. Therefore, you've got to understand. The Chinese have a Confucius Institute in order to help us understand why do we study anthropology. We were just talking once again, that in Nigeria since 1967, history is not taught in Nigerian high school. History. And the argument is they don't want people to remember the Civil War. You go to Jewish school, they teach the Holocaust. Yeah. That it may never be repeated. You go to the Korean War, the part of the quarrel between the Koreans, the Japanese, and the Chinese is distorted history of the Chinese or the Japanese presence in Shanghai and in Seoul and Pyongyang. So I'm submitting to what they are many. And I do not know, I look forward to the day, the diaspora. If you could organize yourself, and I know you are, even across Europe, and make demands at the following levels. Level 1, demand observer status in the regional bodies. And this petition must go country so that the Kenyans, the same petition is sent to all this. Once you've had it in ECOWAS and all the 8 recs in Africa, demand it in the African Union. Once you do that, you are going to demand once again, through your own means, by way of trial, say 1% of the money that comes out of this part goes into research in specific things in 1 year, so that you don't wait for the Nobel Prize to tell us who is the best scientist. We can have our own prizes. And I want to conclude with this. Look at the film industry in Nigeria called the Nollywood. Mm-hmm. Nollywood now is creating a blip in the Nigerian economy. I think it's the 3rd or the 4th largest foreign exchange earner for Nigeria. is a multi-million-dollar industry, employing people in the thousands. Produces more films now than both Bollywood and Hollywood combined. Like now, since we came, they would have recorded a film. Yeah, but the point that I'm making is that if people can make a film in 1 hour and it's sold out there, they have something to teach Hollywood. So I can't agree with us more. So when I'm asked this question, what do you see? And I listen to your pain, because I can feel your pain.
Indeed.
That you are past that age where your ideas are going to be accepted, even us. The younger people think that we had better give them way. But yet there is such major contribution that we would love to make. And you take 1 step, 2 steps forward, and they return you 5. But Luther King used to say, if you can't run, crawl. If you can't crawl, walk. If you can't walk, run. And if you can't, let's put it so graphically, if you can't be a tall tree, be a bush. If you can't be a bush, be a scrub. If you can't be a scrub, be grass. But be something.